The divorce papers sat on the glass coffee table like an accusation. Connor Blackwell stared at them from his leather couch, the Key West city lights blinking through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse. It was 3 a.m. and sleep felt like a luxury he couldn't afford, though he could afford everything else. His phone buzzed. Another email about the Meridian deal. 72 hours until the biggest real estate acquisition of his career would close. $50 million. His company would triple in value overnight. He should have been celebrating. Instead he felt nothing. The signature at the bottom of the divorce papers belonged to Vanessa. 8 years of marriage gone. Her lawyer's letter was brief and cutting. Emotional neglect were the words that stuck in his mind. Not infidelity. Not abuse. Just absence. She said living with him was like living with a ghost who paid the bills. Connor stood and walked to the window. At 42, he had everything he'd worked for since leaving his small Ohio town at 18. The penthouse. The company. The reputation. People respected Connor Blackwell. They feared him in negotiations. They wanted his advice, his money, his approval. But Vanessa didn't want him anymore. He picked up his phone and scrolled through his contacts. Hundreds of names. Business associates. Clients. Lawyers. Contractors. His thumb hovered over mom, but he didn't press it. What would he say? That he'd failed at the one thing that wasn't supposed to be a transaction? The city below was quiet. Key West never really slept, but at this hour it rested. Connor made a decision that surprised him. He would walk. Just walk. Something he hadn't done in years without a destination or purpose. He changed from his suit into jeans and a green polo shirt, clothes that felt foreign on his body. When was the last time he wore casual clothes? He couldn't remember. His driver was off duty, which meant he'd actually have to walk out his front door like a normal person. The elevator ride down felt longer than usual. The lobby was empty except for the night security guard, who looked startled to see him. Mr. Blackwell? Is everything all right? Fine, Thomas. Just taking a walk. Thomas nodded slowly, the way you nod at someone who's clearly not fine but you're too polite to say so. The humid Florida air hit Connor as he stepped outside. It was late September, and the heat had finally broken into something bearable. He turned left, heading toward the waterfront without thinking. His feet carried him past closed shops and quiet bars, past tourists stumbling back to their hotels, past the life he usually observed from car windows. A cat darted across his path, startling him. When was the last time something unexpected had happened to him? His life was scheduled down to 15-minute increments. His assistant managed his calendar like a military operation. Spontaneity was inefficient. But here he was, walking at 3 a.m. with no plan. He thought about Vanessa's last words to him, spoken 3 weeks ago in this same penthouse. I don't know who you are anymore, Connor. I'm not sure you do either. She'd been crying and he'd stood there, helpless, not knowing how to fix something that couldn't be solved with money or strategy. I'll change, he'd said. You've been saying that for 3 years. She was right. He had been saying it. But saying and doing were different things, and Connor Blackwell was a man who did what was necessary for success. Personal feelings were complications. Emotions were variables that made negotiations messy. Except now, those ignored emotions had cost him his marriage. His phone buzzed again. His business partner, Derek. Even at 3 a.m. the man was working. The message was brief. Meridian people want to move the meeting up. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. Confirmed? Connor stared at the message. Tomorrow. Not in 72 hours. Tomorrow. The biggest deal of his life, and he felt nothing. No excitement. No anxiety. Just emptiness. He typed back, confirmed. The waterfront was ahead now. He could hear the ocean, that constant rhythm that had been the background of his life since moving to Key West 5 years ago. He'd chosen this city for its tax benefits and business opportunities, not for its beauty. But now, in the dark early morning, he noticed things he'd never paid attention to. The way the streetlights reflected on the water. The sound of boats gently knocking against the docks. The smell of salt and fish and life. A bench appeared in front of him, and he sat down heavily. The wood was rough and weathered, nothing like the expensive furniture in his penthouse. It felt real. Connor put his head in his hands. When had he become this person? His mother had raised him to be kind. His father, before he died, had taught him that success meant nothing if you were alone. But somewhere between Ohio and Key West, between 22 and 42, he'd forgotten those lessons. The Meridian deal would make him richer. More successful. More respected in business circles. But who would he celebrate with? Derek would shake his hand and immediately start planning the next acquisition. His employees would send congratulatory emails written by assistants. His mother would say she was proud but ask when he was coming to visit, a question he'd been avoiding for 2 years. Vanessa would sign the divorce papers and move on with her life. Connor looked up at the sky. The stars were fading as the first hint of dawn touched the horizon. He'd sat here longer than he thought. Time had passed in that strange way it does when you're lost in your own head. He should go back. Shower. Prepare for the meeting. Review the contracts one more time. That's what the old Connor would do. The successful Connor. The Connor who had everything except what mattered. But instead he stayed on the bench and watched the sun start to rise. Colors spread across the sky in ways he'd forgotten existed. Pink and orange and gold, painting the world new. And that's when he saw her. A woman pushed a cart along the waterfront path. Even from a distance he could see the cart was painted in bright colors, reds and yellows and blues. She wore a maroon apron over a white shirt, and her dark skin glowed in the early morning light. She was singing something he couldn't quite hear, her voice carrying on the breeze. Connor watched as she set up her cart near the water. She moved with purpose but without rush, arranging items he couldn't see from his bench. There was joy in her movements, a contentment he hadn't seen in himself for longer than he could remember. He stood up, drawn by curiosity he didn't understand. As he got closer he could smell something wonderful. Baked goods. Cakes. Fresh and sweet and completely out of place on a waterfront dock at dawn. The woman looked up as he approached, and her smile was immediate and genuine. Morning. You're up early. Or is it late for you? Connor stopped, caught off guard by the directness of her greeting. Early. I couldn't sleep. One of those nights. Well, you're in luck. I've got fresh cakes that'll either solve your problems or make you forget them for a minute. Both are valuable. She had the most expressive eyes he'd ever seen, warm and alive with humor. There was a small spot of what looked like frosting on the corner of her mouth, and she seemed completely unconcerned about it. You sell cakes here? At dawn. I sell cakes when people need cakes, and people always need cakes. Breakfast, celebration, comfort, or just because it's Tuesday. I'm not picky about the reasons. Connor found himself almost smiling. That's an interesting business model. It works for me. Now, are you going to stand there analyzing my business strategy, or are you going to try a slice? I've got key lime, chocolate raspberry, and lemon lavender today. All made fresh last night. He looked at the cakes displayed in the cart. They were beautiful in a homemade way, not perfect but clearly made with care. How much? $5 a slice. $7 for the lemon lavender because the lavender's expensive and I'm running a business, not a charity. Connor pulled out his wallet. He had $300 bills and nothing smaller. He always carried cash for tips and small transactions, though he rarely used it. I'll take all of them. The woman's smile faded slightly. All of what? All the cakes. Every slice you have. How much for everything? She crossed her arms, and the warmth in her eyes cooled to something more cautious. That's not how this works. I'm offering to buy your entire inventory. You'll make more money in one transaction than you would all morning. It's efficient. Efficient. She repeated the word like it tasted bad. Let me explain something to you, mister. These cakes aren't just products. They're for the fishermen who come by before their boats leave. For the nurses finishing night shifts at the hospital. For the guy who proposes to his boyfriend over there by that bench every Tuesday until he says yes, which happened last week, by the way. You don't get to buy out their chance to have something good this morning just because you've got money and no patience. Connor stood there, his wallet in his hand, feeling like he'd been slapped. I didn't mean. I know what you meant. You meant to solve a problem quickly so you could move on to the next thing. But some things aren't problems to be solved. Some things are experiences to be had. So no, you can't buy all the cakes. You can buy one slice, eat it, and maybe remember that other people exist in the world besides you. The sun was fully up now, and Connor could see her face clearly. She wasn't angry, just firm. And she was absolutely right. You're right, he said quietly. I'm sorry. Can I buy one slice of the key lime? Her smile returned, smaller but genuine. Now we're talking. Key lime's a good choice. It's honest. Not trying to be fancy, just trying to be good. She cut a generous slice and placed it on a small paper plate with a plastic fork. Connor handed her $100 bill. I don't have change for this. Keep it. No. It's a tip. It's manipulative. You're trying to buy goodwill after I called you out. $5 or no cake. Connor stared at her. No one talked to him like this. No one refused his money. No one challenged him so directly. And stranger still, he liked it. I don't have anything smaller. She sighed, opened a small box under the cart, and counted out $95 in small bills and coins. Here. Your change. Now eat the cake before it gets warm. Key lime's best when it's cool. Connor took the change and the cake. He took a bite and the flavor surprised him. It was perfect. Tart and sweet and creamy, with a crust that was buttery and crisp. This is incredible. I know. My mama's recipe. She knew what she was doing. There was love in her voice when she mentioned her mother, a tenderness that made Connor's chest ache. What's your name? Claire. Claire Thompson. And before you ask, no, I don't have a business card, and no, I'm not interested in expanding or franchising or whatever business thing you're about to suggest. I like my cart, my cakes, and my customers. I'm Connor. I figured you were somebody, Connor. You've got that look. Expensive watch, good shoes, and the kind of tiredness that comes from having too much and not enough at the same time. He should have been offended. Instead, he felt seen. That's very perceptive. I pay attention. It's free and it tells you more than money ever could. A fisherman approached the cart, and Claire's attention shifted immediately. She greeted him by name, asked about his daughter's soccer game, and served him chocolate raspberry with the same joy she'd shown Connor. They laughed about something and the man walked away smiling. Connor finished his cake, threw away the plate, and stood there awkwardly. He didn't want to leave, which was strange. He had a meeting in 9 hours. He needed to shower, prepare, and review contracts. But here, on this waterfront dock, eating cake made by a woman who saw through him completely, he felt more present than he had in years. Will you be here tomorrow? He asked. Claire looked at him with those expressive eyes. Same time, same place. But you can't buy all the cakes then either. Understood. Maybe just one slice. Maybe. She smiled at him, and it felt like a gift he hadn't earned but was grateful to receive anyway. Connor walked back toward his penthouse, the taste of key lime still on his tongue. The sun was bright now, the city waking up around him. He had a massive deal to close, a marriage to mourn, and a life to figure out. But tomorrow morning he'd be back at that cart. For the first time in longer than he could remember, he had something to look forward to that had nothing to do with money or success or proving himself to people who didn't really matter. He had a cake vendor who told him the truth and a slice of key lime that tasted like hope. Are you someone who believes in second chances? In finding connection when you least expect it? If Connor's story resonates with you, subscribe and let me know in the comments. Would you accept a challenge like Claire's or would you walk away? Your thoughts matter. Connor's meeting with the Meridian investors lasted 4 hours. He signed papers, shook hands, and smiled at appropriate moments. Derek kept giving him strange looks across the conference table, probably because Connor seemed distracted. He was. His mind kept drifting to a cake cart on the waterfront and a woman who refused his money. When the meeting finally ended, Derek pulled him aside. Are you all right? You seemed off today. I'm fine. Just tired. We just closed the biggest deal of our lives and you look like you're attending a funeral. What's going on? Connor thought about telling him. About Vanessa. About the divorce papers. About walking at dawn and meeting someone who saw through all his carefully constructed walls. But Derek wouldn't understand. Derek lived for deals like this. His wife was a lawyer who understood long hours and canceled dinners. They made it work because they were the same kind of people. Just processing everything, Connor said instead. Derek clapped him on the shoulder. Well, process faster. We've got the celebration dinner tonight at 7. All the investors will be there. Or something nice. Connor nodded and left the building. His driver was waiting, but Connor told him to go home. He'd walk. It was only 3 in the afternoon, and he had 4 hours before dinner. He could go back to the penthouse, change, and review the acquisition documents again. Or he could do something else. He walked toward the waterfront. The sun was hot and bright, nothing like the soft dawn light from this morning. Tourists crowded the streets now, taking photos and eating ice cream. Connor moved through them, invisible in his blue suit despite its expensive cut. The cake cart was gone. Of course it was. Claire sold at dawn, not in the afternoon heat. But Connor walked to the spot where it had been anyway, as if he might find some trace of her there. A young couple sat on the bench where he'd watched the sunrise. They were holding hands and laughing about something on the girl's phone. They looked happy in that easy way young people in love look happy before life gets complicated. Connor sat on a different bench and pulled out his phone. He had 17 new emails, all requiring responses. 3 text messages from Derek about dinner. 1 missed call from his lawyer about the divorce proceedings. He ignored all of it and opened a search browser. He typed Claire Thompson Key West cakes and waited. Nothing came up. No website. No social media. No business listings. In 2024, almost every business had an online presence. But apparently, Claire Thompson and her cake cart existed outside the digital world. It felt appropriate somehow. She'd probably say websites were just another way to avoid real human connection. Connor's phone rang. His mother. He stared at the name on the screen for 3 rings before answering. Hi, Mom. Connor. I was starting to think you'd forgotten how to use a phone. How are you, honey? Her voice was warm and familiar, full of the Ohio accent she'd never lost despite living in Florida for the past decade. Connor felt a wave of guilt wash over him. When was the last time he'd called her? 3 weeks? A month? I'm good. Busy. Just closed a big deal today. That's wonderful, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you. How's Vanessa? The question landed like a stone in his chest. Mom, Vanessa and I are getting divorced. Silence on the other end. Then quietly, oh, Connor. When? She moved out 3 weeks ago. Papers came through yesterday. And you're just telling me now? I'm sorry. I didn't know how to say it. His mother sighed. Honey, I love you, but you need to stop trying to handle everything alone. That's what got you here in the first place. You don't know that. Don't I? You've been pulling away from everyone who loves you for years. Your father used to say you were so focused on the destination that you forgot to enjoy the journey. I'm starting to think he was right. Connor closed his eyes. His father had died 10 years ago, a heart attack at 63. The last conversation they'd had was an argument about Connor canceling Christmas to close a deal in New York. Dad wanted me to be successful. He wanted you to be happy. Success was supposed to be a tool for that, not the whole point. There's a difference, Connor. I know. And he did know. He'd just forgotten somewhere along the way. Come visit me this weekend. Please. We'll have dinner, you can sleep in your old room, and we'll figure this out together. I can't this weekend. I have meetings. Next weekend then. Maybe. Another sigh. Connor Paul Blackwell, I am your mother, and I am telling you that maybe isn't good enough anymore. Next weekend. I'll make your favorite pot roast. We'll talk about everything you've been avoiding. And if you try to cancel, I'll drive to Key West and drag you here myself. Despite everything, Connor smiled. Yes, ma'am. Good. Now tell me about this deal you closed. And don't give me the business version. Tell me if it makes you happy. Connor looked out at the water. The couple on the other bench was kissing now, completely absorbed in each other. Honestly, Mom? It doesn't make me feel much of anything. Then why did you do it? Because it's what I'm supposed to do. Grow the company. Make more money. Prove I'm successful. Prove to who? That was the question, wasn't it? I don't know anymore. His mother was quiet for a moment. Then gently, baby, it's never too late to change direction. Your father and I didn't raise you to be miserable. We raised you to be a good person who treats people with kindness. Everything else was supposed to follow from that, not the other way around. I met someone this morning, Connor said suddenly. A woman who sells cakes on the waterfront. She told me I couldn't buy all her inventory because other people deserved the chance to have something good too. His mother laughed. I like her already. She saw right through me, Mom. Looked at me and knew exactly what kind of person I've become. And instead of being impressed by the money or the success, she just served me one slice of cake and told me to remember other people exist. Smart woman. Are you going to see her again? I want to. Is that crazy? I don't even know her, and I want to go back tomorrow morning just to buy another slice of cake. That's not crazy, honey. That's called being interested in someone. Remember that feeling? It's what attracted you to Vanessa once upon a time. Connor remembered. Late nights in college talking about everything and nothing. Vanessa's laugh that made him feel lighter. The way she challenged his ideas and made him think differently. When had that stopped? When had they become two people living parallel lives instead of one shared life? I think I forgot how to do this, Mom. How to be a person instead of a business machine. Then learn again. And maybe this cake lady can teach you. God knows someone needs to. They talked for another 20 minutes about nothing important and everything that mattered. His mother told him about her book club and the neighbor's new puppy. Connor listened and realized how much he'd missed these conversations, these simple connections that had nothing to do with deals or negotiations. When he finally hung up, it was almost 6. He had an hour before the celebration dinner. He should go home and change. But his suit was fine, and the restaurant was only a few blocks away. He walked there slowly, watching the city around him. Street musicians played on corners. Artists sold paintings of sunsets and sailboats. A little girl dropped her ice cream cone and cried while her father bought her another one. Life was happening all around him, the kind of life he'd been too busy to notice. The restaurant was expensive and exclusive, the kind of place where Connor usually felt at home. But tonight, walking through the door felt like putting on a costume. The hostess greeted him by name. Derek was already at the table with 6 investors, all men in suits that cost more than most people made in a month. There he is, the man of the hour. Derek stood and shook Connor's hand with too much enthusiasm. He'd already had a few drinks. Connor sat down and smiled at the right times. He listened to talk about market projections and expansion opportunities. He ate food he couldn't taste and drank wine he didn't want. The investors congratulated him, talking about his reputation and business sense like these were the most important qualities a person could have. And all he could think about was a woman in a maroon apron who made cakes and knew people's names and stories. Earth to Connor. Derek was snapping his fingers in front of his face. Where are you, man? Sorry? Long day. Long day? We just made $50 million. This should be the best day of your life. Should be. But it wasn't. Connor looked around the table at these men who would never know his mother's pot roast recipe or remember the names of fishermen buying breakfast. They were successful, respected, and probably just as empty as he was. I need some air, Connor said, standing up. Now. We're about to order dessert. I'll be right back. He walked outside and stood on the sidewalk. The sun was setting, painting the sky in those same colors he'd watched this morning. He pulled out his phone and set an alarm for 5 a.m. Tomorrow he'd go back to the cake cart. Not because he needed anything from Claire Thompson, but because for the first time in years, someone had treated him like a regular person instead of a wallet with a heartbeat. And that felt more valuable than any deal he'd ever closed. Connor went back inside, finished the dinner, and smiled through dessert. But in his mind he was already planning what he'd say tomorrow. He'd apologize for trying to buy all the cakes. He'd ask about her mother's recipe. He'd listen instead of talking. He'd try to be the person he'd forgotten how to be. And maybe, if he was lucky, Claire would give him another slice of cake and another chance to remember that success meant nothing if you were too empty to enjoy it. The dinner ended around 10. Connor went home, set his alarm again just to be sure, and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. $50 million richer, and all he wanted was $5 worth of key lime cake and a conversation with someone who had no reason to impress him. His phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa's lawyer about signing the final papers next week. Connor set the phone down without responding. Tomorrow morning couldn't come fast enough. The alarm went off at 5 a.m., but Connor was already awake. He'd barely slept, his mind restless with thoughts he couldn't organize. He showered, dressed in jeans and a red shirt, and left his penthouse before the sun had fully risen. The walk to the waterfront felt different this time. Yesterday he'd been running from his empty life. Today he was walking toward something, though he wasn't quite sure what. Claire's cart was already set up when he arrived. She wore a bright blue shirt today under her maroon apron, and she was arranging flowers in a small vase on the corner of her cart. Real flowers, pink and yellow blooms that had no business being on a mobile bakery cart. She looked up as he approached, and her eyebrows rose. You came back. I said I would. People say a lot of things. Following through is rarer. But she was smiling, so he took it as a good sign. What can I get you today? What do you recommend? Claire studied him for a moment. You look less tired than yesterday. Still sad but less tired. That calls for chocolate raspberry. It's got enough sweetness to remind you good things exist, but enough depth that it doesn't insult your intelligence. Connor laughed, surprising himself. That's the most thoughtful cake recommendation I've ever received. I take cake very seriously. It's basically edible therapy. She cut him a slice, and this time Connor had exact change ready. $5 in singles, counted out carefully. Claire took the money with an approving nod. Look at you, coming prepared. I'm impressed. I learn from my mistakes. That's a rare quality in men with expensive watches. Connor looked down at his watch, a Rolex he'd bought to celebrate his first $1 million deal. It cost more than Claire probably made in 3 months. Should I not wear it? Wear what you want. Just don't let it wear you. She handed him the cake. Eat here today. I want to see if my recommendation was right. So Connor stood by the cart and ate the chocolate raspberry cake. It was rich and complex, with layers of flavor that developed as he chewed. This is amazing. Do you bake all of these yourself? Every night. Start around 8 p.m., finish around 2 a.m. Sleep for a few hours, then set up the cart by 5. Been doing it for 6 years now. That's exhausting. It's honest work. I make something with my hands that brings people joy. Not many jobs can say that. She served a young nurse who looked dead on her feet, chatting with her about a patient who was finally being discharged. The nurse left with lemon lavender cake and a smile. Connor watched the interaction, fascinated by how easily Claire connected with people. You really know all your customers. Most of them. The regulars anyway. That's Linda. Her shift ends at 5, and she always gets lemon lavender because it reminds her of her grandmother's garden in Georgia. She's been saving up to bring her grandma down to visit next month. How do you remember all that? Claire shrugged. I pay attention. People tell you their stories if you actually listen. Most folks are so busy or distracted that nobody really hears them anymore. So I hear them. And I remember. A fisherman approached, the same one from yesterday. Claire greeted him by name again. Morning, Frank. How's Bella doing with soccer? She scored 2 goals last night. I've got pictures. Frank pulled out his phone and showed Claire photos of a girl in a green uniform, beaming with pride. Look at her go. Tell her Miss Claire says congratulations. And here, take an extra slice for her. Growing soccer stars need fuel. Claire, I can't. You can and you will. Consider it a championship bonus. Frank left with 2 slices and gratitude shining in his eyes. Connor waited until he was gone before speaking. You do that a lot? Give away free cake. When it matters, yes. Frank's a single dad working 2 jobs to keep Bella in that soccer league. An extra slice of cake isn't going to break my business, but it might make his morning a little lighter. She looked at Connor directly. Not everything is about profit margins and efficiency. Yesterday you said you were running a business, not a charity. I'm running a business. But a business run by a human being, not a calculator. There's a difference. Connor thought about his own company. When was the last time he'd given someone something just because it mattered? When was the last time he'd known his employees' stories, their children's names, their struggles? You're making me think about a lot of things I've been avoiding, he said quietly. Good. Thinking's free and you look like you need to do more of it. Can I ask you something personal? Claire raised an eyebrow. You can ask. I might not answer. Why cakes? Why this? He gestured at the cart, the waterfront, the whole setup. She was quiet for a moment, her hands still as she considered his question. My mama started this cart 20 years ago. She was a housekeeper who loved to bake, and one day she decided she was tired of cleaning other people's houses. So she saved up, bought this cart and started selling her cakes. Built a whole community around it. When she got sick 8 years ago, I took over. Kept it going through her treatment, through her last days and after. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Be grateful you got to eat her key lime recipe. She would have liked that someone appreciated it. Claire's eyes were shiny but she didn't cry. This cart is her legacy. Every cake I sell, every person I talk to, that's me keeping her alive. It's not about money. It's about connection. It's about doing something that matters. Connor felt something crack inside his chest. My father died 10 years ago. I was supposed to come home for Christmas but I canceled to close a deal. I never got to apologize. That's a heavy thing to carry. I tell myself he understood. That he knew I was building something. But I don't think he did understand. I think I disappointed him. Claire reached across the cart and touched his hand briefly. Just a moment of contact, but it felt like absolution. Then don't disappoint him anymore. It's not too late to be the person he raised you to be. A group of tourists approached, and Claire shifted smoothly into her vendor persona, bright and welcoming. Connor stepped aside and watched her work. She was magical with people, finding something to connect with in each person. She asked questions, remembered details, made everyone feel seen. When the tourists left, Connor was still standing there. Claire looked at him with amusement. You planning to spend all morning at my cart? Do you mind? Not really. You're quiet enough and you're not trying to buy all my inventory again, so that's progress. So Connor stayed. He watched the sunrise fully break over the water. He met more of Claire's regulars. He learned that the man in the green jacket was proposing to his boyfriend again, a running joke Claire explained with obvious affection. He listened to Claire talk about her daughter, Tasha, who was in her 2nd year of medical school in Miami. She's the smart one in the family, Claire said with pride. Full scholarship, top of her class. She's going to be a pediatrician. Always wanted to help kids. You must be proud. Proud doesn't even cover it. I worked 3 jobs when she was growing up, kept this cart going, made sure she had what she needed for school. Every acceptance letter, every good grade, every award, that was us winning. Both of us. Where's her father? Claire's expression hardened slightly. Gone. Left when Tasha was 2. Decided being a father was too hard, so he just stopped showing up. Haven't heard from him in 20 years. I'm sorry. I'm not. We did fine without him. Better probably. Tasha knows what real love looks like because I showed her every single day. That's worth more than a father who didn't want to be there. Connor thought about his own father, who'd been there but who Connor had taken for granted. Who he'd disappointed in the name of success. You're an amazing mother. I try. That's all any of us can do. Try our best and hope it's enough. By 7 a.m. the early morning rush was over. Claire started packing up her cart, moving with practiced efficiency. Connor helped without asking, handing her containers and folding the small table she used for display. You don't have to help. I know. I want to. They worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Claire spoke again. Why are you really here, Connor? And don't say it's just for the cake. He stopped, holding a stack of paper plates. Honestly? Because yesterday morning, you treated me like a regular person. You didn't care about my money or my success. You just saw me. And I realized nobody has really seen me in a very long time. That sounds lonely. It is. I'm getting divorced. My wife says I'm emotionally absent, and she's right. I just closed the biggest deal of my career, and all I could think about was coming back here to buy another slice of cake from someone who told me the truth. Claire studied him. That's a lot to put on a cake vendor you just met. I know. I'm sorry if it's too much. I didn't say it was too much. Just a lot. She finished packing and turned to face him fully. Here's the thing, Connor. You seem like a good person who got lost in all the wrong things. That happens. Life gets busy, priorities get confused, and suddenly you look around and wonder how you got here. But the good news is you're not dead yet. You can change direction anytime you want. How? Start by figuring out what actually matters to you. Not what you think should matter or what other people say should matter. What makes you feel alive? What makes you want to get up in the morning? What would you do if money wasn't a factor? Connor thought about it. The answer came more quickly than he expected. I want to help people. Build things that matter, not just things that make money. Connect with people instead of using them. Be someone my father would have been proud of. Then do that. It's not that simple. It never is. But it's also not as complicated as you're making it. You've got resources. You've got skills. Use them for something besides making yourself richer. Figure out how to build a life that feels good, not just looks good. A text message buzzed on Connor's phone. Derek asking about another meeting. Connor silenced it without reading the full message. I'll be here tomorrow, he said to Claire. Same time. I'll be here. Same cakes, same truth-telling. You sure you can handle it? I'm starting to think it's exactly what I need. Claire smiled at him and something warm bloomed in Connor's chest. Hope maybe. Or possibility. Or just the simple pleasure of being seen by someone who had no agenda except honesty. He walked back to his penthouse with chocolate on his tongue and questions in his mind. But for the first time in years, they were the right questions. What did he actually want? Who did he want to be? How could he build a life that mattered? He didn't have the answers yet. But tomorrow morning he'd be back at the cake cart, and maybe Claire would help him figure it out. One slice at a time. Connor came back every morning for the next 2 weeks. It became a routine that felt more important than any meeting on his calendar. Wake at 5, walk to the waterfront, buy one slice of cake, and talk with Claire as she served her regular customers. He learned things about her that fascinated him. She could recite poetry from memory. She'd never traveled outside Florida but could describe Paris from books like she'd lived there. She laughed with her whole body, and the sound made something in Connor's chest feel lighter. He also learned about himself through her questions. Claire didn't ask about his business or his money. She asked what made him happy as a child. What he dreamed about at night. What scared him. What he'd do if he had only 1 year to live. I think I'd spend more time with my mom, he said one morning, working through lemon lavender cake. And I'd apologize to everyone I hurt by being absent. So why wait? You've got more than a year, hopefully. Start now. So Connor did. He called his mother every evening. He visited her that weekend, despite Derek's protests about missed meetings. He sat in his childhood home and ate pot roast and talked about his father and his failures and his hope that maybe he could still change. His mother hugged him and cried and told him it was never too late. Connor also started changing how he ran his company. He learned his employees' names, all 200 of them. He asked about their families. He adjusted policies to give better parental leave and flexible hours. Derek thought he'd lost his mind. You're going soft, Derek said during a management meeting. This isn't how you build an empire. Maybe I don't want an empire, Connor replied. Maybe I want a company where people actually want to work. But the biggest change was in his mornings. Those hours with Claire became sacred. He'd arrive at her cart, buy his daily cake, and just exist in her presence. They talked about everything and nothing. She told him stories about her customers. He told her about his childhood in Ohio, about dreams he'd forgotten he had. And slowly, carefully, Connor realized he was falling in love with her. It wasn't dramatic or sudden. It was gradual like sunrise. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was thinking. The sound of her laugh. The kindness in her eyes when she talked to struggling customers. The strength it took to raise a daughter alone and keep her mother's legacy alive. He was falling in love, and he had no idea what to do about it. On the 15th morning, Connor arrived to find Claire struggling with a broken wheel on her cart. She was on her knees trying to fix it with limited tools and increasing frustration. "Let me help." Connor knelt beside her without waiting for permission. "It's fine. I've got it." "Claire, you've been wrestling with this for how long?" 20 minutes. "Stupid thing broke on my way here." Connor examined the wheel. The axle was bent. "This needs a professional. You can't fix it with just these tools. I can't afford to miss a day of sales." "Then let me pay for the repair." Claire's eyes flashed. "No, Claire." "I said no. I don't need your money, Connor. It's not charity. It's helping a friend." She sat back on her heels, looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Is that what we are? Friends? I'd like to think so. Aren't we?" Claire was quiet for a long moment. Then softly, "I don't know what we are. You show up every morning, buy one cake, and we talk. But I don't really know you, Connor. Not really. I know you're getting divorced and you hate your life and you're trying to change. But I don't know what you want from me." The question hung in the air between them. Connor realized this was a moment that mattered, one of those pivots where everything could change based on what he said next. "I want to keep knowing you," he said honestly. "I want to keep learning from you. I want to be the kind of person who deserves your respect. And honestly, I want more than that, but I don't know if I have the right to ask for it." "What do you mean more?" Connor took a breath. "I'm falling in love with you, Claire. I know it's fast and I know I'm probably the last person you'd want to be with. I'm still figuring out how to be a decent human being. But being with you makes me want to be better. You make me want to be better." Claire stared at him, her eyes wide. "Connor. You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know." She stood up abruptly, brushing dirt from her jeans. "I need to get this cart fixed. Let me help, please. Not because I'm trying to buy your affection, but because I care about you and I don't want you to struggle with this alone." Claire looked at him for a long time. Then she nodded. "Okay, but just the wheel. Nothing else." Connor called a local mechanic he knew, pulled some strings and got someone there within an hour. While they waited, he and Claire sat on the bench where he'd first watched the sunrise. "This is complicated," Claire said quietly. "I know. I'm a single mother with a daughter in medical school. I run a cake cart at dawn. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment and drive a car that's older than my daughter. You live in a penthouse and close $50 million deals. I don't care about any of that. But it matters, Connor. Our worlds are completely different. So we'll build a new world. Together." Claire laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "You make it sound so simple. Why can't it be? Because life isn't a fairy tale. Because you've known me for 2 weeks. Because you're still getting divorced and figuring out your life. Because I've built walls for 20 years to protect myself and my daughter, and I don't know if I can let them down for someone I barely know. Then let me prove myself. Give me a chance to show you I'm serious." "How?" Connor didn't think. He just spoke from his heart. "If I buy all the cakes, will you marry me?" The words hung in the air. Claire's eyes went huge. Then she started laughing, really laughing, the kind of laugh that bends you over and makes your stomach hurt. "Are you seriously proposing to me right now?" Connor felt his face get hot. That came out wrong. "You think?" But she was still laughing, and Connor found himself laughing too because it was absurd and ridiculous and completely not how he'd meant to do this. When they both stopped laughing, Claire wiped her eyes. "Connor Blackwell, that is the worst proposal I've ever heard. And for the record, you still can't buy all the cakes." "I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like a real proposal." "Didn't you?" She looked at him with those knowing eyes. "Because it sounded pretty real to me." Connor met her gaze. "What if it was? What if I'm serious? Then I'd say you're crazy. Maybe I am. But I've never been more sure of anything. I love you, Claire. I know it's fast and I know it's complicated, but I love you. And if buying all your cakes would prove it, I'd do it. But I know that's not what you want. So tell me what you want. Tell me how to prove I'm serious about this, about you, about building a life that actually matters. Claire was quiet for a long time. The mechanic worked on the cart behind them. The sun climbed higher in the sky. Tourists started walking past on their way to early breakfast spots. Finally, Claire spoke. You really want to prove yourself? Yes. Then I have a challenge for you. If you can do it, I'll consider taking you seriously. If you can't, you walk away and we stay friends. Nothing more. What's the challenge? Claire turned to face him fully. Live my life for 1 week. Wake up at my time, work my hours, live on my budget. No expensive dinners, no driver, no using your money to make things easier. Just live like I live and see if you still think our worlds can merge. Connor didn't hesitate. When do I start? Tomorrow. I'll pick you up at 7 p.m. Pack light. You're staying at my place. Your place. That's part of it. You sleep on my couch, eat my food, live my life. All of it. Can you handle that? Connor thought about his penthouse, his king-sized bed, his morning coffee routine with beans that cost $40 a pound. He thought about giving all that up for a week. Then he thought about Claire's smile and the way his chest felt when she laughed. I can handle it. We'll see. But she was smiling and it felt like hope. The mechanic finished with the cart. Connor paid him, ignoring Claire's protest that she'd pay him back. They set up the cart together, and Claire served her late morning customers with her usual grace. When the rush ended, she turned to Connor. 7 p.m. tomorrow. My address is 447 Coral Street, apartment 3B. Don't be late. I won't be. And Connor? This isn't a game. This is my real life. If you can't respect it, if you can't handle it, tell me now. I respect it. I respect you. And I'm going to prove it. Claire nodded. We'll see. Connor walked back to his penthouse with his heart racing. He'd just agreed to leave his comfortable life for a week. To live on a budget he couldn't imagine. To prove himself to a woman he'd known for 2 weeks but loved like he'd known her forever. Derek was going to lose his mind. His mother was going to laugh and say she told him so. And Connor didn't care about any of it. Because tomorrow he'd start learning how to live a life that actually mattered. One slice of cake, one real conversation, one genuine connection at a time. Connor packed a small bag with clothes and toiletries, feeling like he was preparing for a mission he didn't fully understand. He looked around his penthouse at the expensive furniture, the art on the walls, the view that cost more per month than most people earned in a year. None of it felt like home. At 6:45 p.m., he called his driver and told him he wouldn't need him for a week. Then he called Derek. You're doing what? Derek's voice pitched high with disbelief. I'm taking a week off. Personal time. We have the expansion meeting on Thursday. The investors from California are flying in. You can handle it. Connor, what's going on with you? Ever since you closed the Meridian deal, you've been acting strange. Is this about Vanessa? It's about me figuring out who I want to be. I'll be back next week. Connor hung up before Derek could argue more. He looked at his watch, the Rolex that had impressed no one who mattered. He took it off and left it on his dresser. The walk to Claire's apartment took 30 minutes. Coral Street was in a neighborhood Connor rarely visited, full of older buildings and small local shops. Number 447 was a 3-story brick building with faded paint and a front door that needed fixing. He climbed to the 3rd floor and knocked on 3B. Claire opened the door wearing comfortable clothes, her hair pulled back. You came. I said I would. Come in. The apartment was small but neat. A living room with a couch and TV, a kitchen barely big enough for 2 people, and 2 bedrooms off a short hallway. The furniture was old but well maintained. Photos covered every wall, mostly of a beautiful young woman Connor assumed was Tasha at various ages. Home sweet home, Claire said, watching his face. It's not much, but it's ours. It's perfect. Liar. But I appreciate the effort. She pointed to the couch. That's your bed for the week. I've got sheets and a pillow. Bathroom's down the hall. You'll share it with me, so keep it clean. Yes, ma'am. Kitchen rules, you cook, you clean. We split groceries 50-50, which means you're paying about $30 for the week. I'll show you the budget spreadsheet later. Connor nodded, taking it all in. This was real. He was really doing this. We've got leftover chicken and rice for dinner. Then I bake from 8 to 2 a.m. You're welcome to help or sleep, but if you sleep, you need to wake up at 4:30 to help me load the cart. I'll help with both. Claire studied him. We'll see how long that lasts. Most people can't handle my schedule for more than a day. They ate dinner at a small table in the kitchen. The food was simple and delicious, seasoned with care. Connor asked about the photos on the walls and Claire told him stories about Tasha. Her first day of school. Her high school graduation. Her acceptance to medical school. She's coming home this weekend, Claire mentioned casually. You'll meet her. Connor's stomach dropped. This weekend? Problem? No. Just nervous. What if she doesn't like me? Then you're in trouble because Tasha's opinion matters more to me than anything else in the world. She's been my reason for everything since the day she was born. What have you told her about me? That some guy's been buying cake every morning for 2 weeks and thinks he's in love with me. Claire said it matter-of-factly, but Connor could see the challenge in her eyes. And what did she say? That she'll believe it when she sees it. Tasha's protective. Her father left and she watched me struggle. She doesn't trust easily, especially not men who show up out of nowhere with money and promises. I understand. Do you? Because Tasha won't be impressed by your penthouse or your deals. She'll be evaluating whether you're good enough for her mother. And trust me, her standards are high. Connor felt the weight of that. I'll do my best. After dinner they cleaned the kitchen together. Then Claire led him to her workspace, a corner of the living room set up with baking equipment. Mixing bowls, measuring cups, ingredients organized in careful rows. This is where the magic happens, she said with a smile. Tonight we're making key lime, chocolate raspberry and lemon lavender. 20 cakes total. You ready? Teach me. So Claire taught him. How to measure ingredients precisely. How to mix batter to the right consistency. How to know when a cake was perfectly baked by touch and smell, not just timers. Connor followed her instructions, finding unexpected peace in the repetitive motions. They worked in comfortable silence, broken occasionally by Claire's instructions or corrections. Connor messed up a batch of chocolate raspberry by overmixing, and Claire patiently showed him how to fix it. Baking is forgiving if you pay attention, she explained. But it doesn't tolerate arrogance. You have to respect the process. Like life. Exactly like life. Around midnight, Connor's phone buzzed. Derek, sending urgent messages about the expansion meeting. Connor silenced it and put the phone away. You can answer if you need to, Claire said. I don't need to. I'm here doing this. Everything else can wait. By 2 a.m. they had 20 perfect cakes cooling on racks. Connor's feet hurt, his back ached, and his hands were covered in batter and frosting. He'd never felt more accomplished. Not bad for your first night, Claire admitted. You didn't quit or complain once. Why would I? This is incredible. You made something beautiful with your own hands. We made something beautiful. You helped. They cleaned up the kitchen and Claire showed him how to set up the couch with sheets and a pillow. Alarms at 4:30. Don't oversleep. I won't. Good night, Connor. Good night, Claire. He lay on the couch, which was less comfortable than his king-sized bed but somehow felt better. Through the thin walls, he could hear Claire moving in her room, getting ready for bed. City sounds filtered through the windows. A car alarm. Distant voices. Life happening all around him. Connor closed his eyes and smiled. The alarm felt cruel when it went off at 4:30. Connor dragged himself up, groggy and disoriented. Claire was already in the kitchen, dressed and ready, looking far too alert for someone who'd slept 2.5 hours. Morning, sunshine. Coffee's ready. Connor poured himself a cup and took a grateful sip. How do you do this every day? Practice. And necessity. Bills don't pay themselves. She handed him a list. We need to load the cart. Everything on this list needs to fit, organized so I can access things easily. Think you can handle it? I'll try. Loading the cart was like a puzzle. Everything had to fit perfectly, balanced so it could be pushed smoothly over the rough sidewalk. Connor struggled at first, but Claire guided him patiently, showing him the system she'd developed over years. By 5 a.m., they were walking to the waterfront, Connor pushing the cart while Claire carried the cash box and supplies. The city was quiet at this hour, peaceful in a way Connor had never experienced from his penthouse. They set up quickly, working in practiced rhythm now. Claire arranged the cakes while Connor set up the table and chairs. By 5:30 they were ready for customers. Frank the fisherman was first like always. Morning, Claire. Who's your helper? This is Connor. He's learning the business. Frank looked Connor over with open curiosity. You picked a tough teacher. Claire doesn't go easy on anybody. I'm learning that, Connor said with a smile. The morning rush was busier than Connor expected. He helped serve customers, counting change and learning names. Linda the nurse. George the teacher. Maria the hotel worker. Each person had a story and Claire knew all of them. By 8 a.m. they'd sold half their inventory. Connor's feet were screaming and he'd never been more tired. But watching Claire interact with her customers, seeing the joy she brought to their mornings, he understood why she did this. "Break time," Claire announced. She cut them each a slice of cake and poured water from a thermos. They sat on the bench and watched the water. "So?" she asked. "Still think you can handle a week of this?" Connor looked at his hands, rougher than they'd been yesterday. His body ached. He'd slept less than 3 hours. He had no idea how his business was doing and he didn't care. "I can handle it. The question is, can you handle having me around?" Claire smiled. "You're not completely useless. That's something." They finished the morning shift by 10, packed up, and walked the cart back to Claire's apartment. Connor pushed while Claire walked beside him, pointing out details of the neighborhood he'd never noticed. The mural on the community center. The garden Mrs. Rodriguez maintained. The bakery that gave day-old bread to people who needed it. Back at the apartment, Connor collapsed on the couch. "Nap time? If you want. I've got errands to run, bills to pay, groceries to buy. You're welcome to come." So Connor went. He watched Claire negotiate prices at the market, carefully comparing costs and choosing items that balanced quality with affordability. She showed him her budget spreadsheet on her phone, every dollar accounted for. "This is what living on $30,000 a year looks like," she explained. "Every choice matters. Every dollar has a job. There's no room for waste." Connor thought about his own spending, the thoughtless purchases and expensive meals. He'd spent more on a single dinner last week than Claire spent on groceries for a month. They got home around 2 p.m. Claire made lunch while Connor reviewed her budget spreadsheet more carefully. Rent, utilities, groceries, Tasha's medical school help, business expenses, savings. Everything was carefully planned with almost nothing left over. "How do you do it?" he asked. "How do you live with no margin for error?" "You do what you have to do. And you find joy in what you have instead of worrying about what you don't." After lunch, Claire let Connor nap on the couch. He slept dreamlessly for 3 hours, waking to the smell of dinner cooking. "Good nap," Claire called from the kitchen. "Best sleep I've had in years." That's what honest work does. Tires you out in all the right ways. They ate dinner together and Connor helped clean up. Then it was back to baking, another night of mixing and measuring and learning. Connor's hands moved more confidently now and Claire corrected him less. Around midnight, Claire's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and smiled. "It's Tasha." She answered on speaker. "Hey, baby girl." "Hi, Mama. Just finished studying. Thought I'd check in." Tasha's voice was warm and confident. "How are you?" "Good. Tired but good. I've got help this week." "Help? Since when do you let anyone help with the cakes?" "Since I decided to give someone a chance." "Tasha, say hi to Connor." There was a pause. Then cautiously, "Connor? The cake guy?" "That's me," Connor said. "Nice to meet you, Tasha." "We'll see about that. What are you doing at my mom's place?" "Learning. Your mother challenged me to live her life for a week. I'm on day 1. Another pause. "And how's that going?" "It's the hardest and most meaningful thing I've done in years." Tasha didn't sound convinced. "Mama, can I talk to you alone?" "Sure, baby." Claire took the phone off speaker and walked into her bedroom, closing the door. Connor kept working, mixing the next batch of cake batter. He could hear Claire's muffled voice through the door but couldn't make out words. The conversation lasted about 10 minutes. When Claire came back, her expression was hard to read. "Tasha's coming home tomorrow night instead of Friday. She wants to meet you." "That's good, right?" "We'll see. She's protective and she's got questions. Lots of questions. I'll answer them honestly." "You better. Because if Tasha doesn't trust you, this is over before it starts." "She's my priority, Connor. Always has been, always will be." "I understand. I wouldn't respect you if it was any other way." They finished baking in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Connor thought about meeting Tasha, about proving himself to yet another person. But he wasn't nervous. He was determined. If he had to earn Claire's love piece by piece, starting with her daughter's approval, then that's what he'd do. Because some things were worth fighting for. And Claire Thompson was worth everything. Day 2 started the same as day 1. Alarm at 4:30. Loading the cart. Walking to the waterfront in the quiet pre-dawn darkness. But Connor's body protested more this morning, muscles sore from unfamiliar work. Claire noticed him wincing. "Hurting?" "A little. I'll be fine. There's pain cream in the bathroom cabinet. Use it tonight." They set up the cart and the morning routine continued. Connor was faster at serving customers now, and he'd started to remember the regulars' names. Frank asked about his daughter's game. Linda talked about her grandmother's upcoming visit. George mentioned his students' test scores improving. Around 7 a.m., Connor's phone buzzed insistently. He ignored it the first 3 times, but on the 4th, Claire noticed. "You need to answer that? It's just my business partner. He'll be fine." "Connor, you can't ignore your whole life. That's not what this challenge is about." So Connor checked his messages. 15 texts from Derek, increasingly frantic. The California investors had moved up their meeting to today. They wanted to discuss the expansion in person, and they were threatening to pull out if Connor wasn't there. "I have to make a call," Connor told Claire. "Do what you need to do." Connor stepped away from the cart and called Derek. "Finally. Where are you?" "The meeting's in 3 hours. I told you I'm taking the week off." "You can't take the week off in the middle of the biggest expansion opportunity we've ever had. These investors are serious, Connor. They want to put in $20 million, but only if you're the face of the company. They don't trust me to lead this." Connor watched Claire serve a young couple, laughing at something the man said. She looked happy, fully present in the moment. "Derek, how long have we worked together?" 15 years. "Why? In 15 years, have I ever given you a reason not to trust your abilities?" "That's not the point." "It is the point. You're a brilliant businessman. You know this company as well as I do. Handle the meeting. Tell them I've delegated this because I trust you completely. And if they won't invest because I'm not in the room, then they're not the right investors for us." "You're serious? You're really not coming?" "I'm serious. You've got this, Derek. I believe in you." There was a long silence. Then quietly, "What's happened to you?" "I'm figuring out what actually matters. Handle the meeting. Call me after and let me know how it goes." Connor hung up before Derek could argue more. His hands were shaking slightly. He'd just potentially walked away from a $20 million investment. The old Connor would never have done that. But the old Connor was miserable. He went back to the cart. Claire looked at him questioningly. "Everything okay?" "I delegated. It'll be fine or it won't. Either way, I'm staying here." Something shifted in Claire's expression. "Respect, maybe." That was a big decision. It was the right decision. Derek's been ready to lead for years. I just never let him because I needed to control everything. Control's an illusion anyway. Life happens whether you're in charge or not. They worked through the morning rush. Around 9 a.m., a woman approached the cart who Connor hadn't seen before. She was elegant, well-dressed, and walked with the confidence of someone used to getting what she wanted. "Claire. I was hoping to catch you." Claire's smile was polite but cooler than usual. "Morning, Patricia. What can I do for you?" "I wanted to talk about your space. This spot on the waterfront, it's prime real estate. I'm representing a developer who's interested in buying the rights to this whole strip." "I don't own this spot. It's public space." "Technically, yes. But my client is working with the city on a development project. New shops, restaurants, a complete renovation of the waterfront. It's going to be beautiful. But it means vendors like you won't be able to set up here anymore." Claire's expression hardened. "When?" "The project starts in 6 months. I wanted to give you advance notice. Maybe help you find a new location." "How thoughtful of you." Claire's voice was flat. Patricia handed her a business card. "Call me if you need help. I know this is your livelihood, and I want to make the transition as smooth as possible." She left, and Claire stared after her with an expression Connor couldn't read. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I'm fine." But her hands were trembling as she rearranged cakes that didn't need rearranging. "Claire." "I said I'm fine, Connor. Drop it." He dropped it, but he filed the information away. Claire had 6 months before she lost her spot. 6 months before her mother's legacy might have to change form. The rest of the morning was quiet. Claire served customers with her usual warmth, but Connor could see the worry underneath. When they packed up and headed back to the apartment, she was silent the whole walk. Back home, Claire went straight to her bedroom and closed the door. Connor heard her on the phone, her voice muffled but intense. He gave her privacy and started preparing lunch with what was left in the fridge. An hour later, she emerged. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying. "Sorry? I needed a minute." "Don't apologize. That was heavy news. It's not the first time someone's tried to push me out. This spot's been contested before. But this sounds more serious. A full development project with city backing." She sat at the table heavily. "I don't know if I can fight this one. You could find a new spot." "It's not about the spot, Connor. My mama set up right there 20 years ago. She fought for that space, built relationships with the other vendors, created a community. That spot is part of her story. Part of our story. Then we'll fight for it. Claire looked at him sharply. You're not alone in this. If you want to fight, I'll help. What? This isn't your problem. Because I care about you. Because this matters to you, which means it matters to me. Claire studied him for a long moment. You really mean that? I do. She was quiet, thinking. Then she shook her head. Let's deal with it later. Tasha's coming home tonight, and I need to prepare you for the interrogation you're about to face. Interrogation? Oh yes. Tasha doesn't do subtle. She's going to ask you every hard question she can think of. She's going to test you, push you, and try to find any reason why you're not good enough for her mother. Sounds fair. You say that now. Wait until she starts asking about your intentions and your 5-year plan and what happened with your marriage. I'll answer honestly. You better. Because Tasha can smell a lie from a mile away. Claire started pulling ingredients for dinner. We're making her favorite tonight. Jerk chicken, rice and peas and plantains. You're helping. So Connor helped. He learned to season chicken properly, to get the rice consistency just right, to fry plantains until they were golden and sweet. Claire moved around the kitchen with practiced ease, and Connor tried to stay out of her way while still being useful. Around 6 p.m. a key turned in the lock. The door opened and a young woman walked in. Tasha was stunning, with Claire's eyes and a confidence that came from knowing exactly who she was. She wore scrubs and carried a backpack that looked heavy with textbooks. Mama? She dropped everything and hugged Claire tightly. Baby girl. You're early. I caught an earlier bus. Wanted more time with you. Tasha's eyes found Connor over Claire's shoulder. And this must be Connor. That's me. Connor extended his hand. It's nice to meet you, Tasha. She shook his hand, her grip firm. We'll see about that. The three of them sat down to dinner. Tasha asked Connor questions while they ate, rapid fire and direct. So you're a millionaire? Technically, yes. What do you do? Real estate development. I build commercial properties. And you've known my mother for 2 weeks? Yes. Why? Connor set down his fork. Because she's the most genuine person I've ever met. Because she challenged me to be better. Because spending time with her made me realize my whole life was empty. Tasha's eyes narrowed. That's a lot to put on someone you just met. I know. But it's the truth. What happened with your marriage? I neglected it. I prioritized work over my wife and she left. She was right to leave. And now you think my mother's going to fix you? No. I think your mother's showing me how to fix myself. What happens when you get bored? When the novelty wears off and you remember you're rich and successful and she's a cake vendor living in a small apartment. Connor met Tasha's challenging gaze steadily. I won't get bored. Your mother isn't a novelty. She's real and authentic and everything I've been missing. I'm not here because I want to save her or change her. I'm here because she's changing me. Words are easy. What about actions? I'm living on her couch, working her hours, learning her life. What else would you like me to do to prove I'm serious? Tasha was quiet for a moment. Then, don't hurt her. She's been through enough. Our father left and she worked 3 jobs to raise me. She's the strongest person I know, but everyone has limits. If you're going to be in her life, you better be all in. No half measures. No running when things get hard. I understand. Do you? Because my mother deserves someone who will stand beside her, not someone who's going through a midlife crisis and thinks playing poor for a week is meaningful. The words stung because they were valid. Connor took a breath. You're right to question me. If I were you, I'd be asking the same things. All I can tell you is that I'm not playing. This isn't a phase or a crisis. I'm trying to become someone I can respect, and your mother is teaching me how. Whether that means we end up together or not, I'll always be grateful to her for that. Tasha studied him for a long time. Then she looked at her mother. What do you think, Mama? Claire had been quiet through the whole exchange. Now she spoke carefully. I think Connor's trying. I think he's got a long way to go, but he's doing the work. And I think we should give him the chance to prove himself. Okay. Tasha turned back to Connor. But I'm watching you. One wrong move, one sign that you're going to hurt her, and I don't care how much money you have. We clear? Crystal clear. The tension eased slightly. They finished dinner, and Connor helped clean up while Tasha told Claire about medical school. He listened to their easy banter, their inside jokes, the love that was obvious in every word. This was a family. A real, functional, loving family built on mutual respect and genuine care. It was nothing like his marriage had been, where he and Vanessa had eventually become strangers sharing a space. Connor's phone buzzed. Derek. The meeting must be over. He excused himself and stepped into the hallway to call back. How did it go? Surprisingly well. They asked where you were. I explained you were taking personal time and had full confidence in me to represent the company. They were skeptical at first, but I walked them through the expansion plans and convinced them we're worth the investment. That's great, Derek. I knew you could do it. Connor, they want to meet you eventually. They made that clear. But they're willing to move forward with the initial investment based on our presentation. See? You didn't need me there. Maybe not for this. But Connor, you can't just disappear from your own company. This worked once, but it's not sustainable. I know. We'll figure it out when I get back. For now, just handle things. I trust you. After he hung up, Connor leaned against the hallway wall. The expansion was happening. The investment was secured. His company would grow just like he'd planned. But he felt no excitement. Just quiet satisfaction that Derek had succeeded. When he went back inside, Tasha and Claire were curled up on the couch, looking at photos on Tasha's phone. Medical school adventures, study groups, moments of a life Claire could only participate in through screens. Connor saw Claire's face as she looked at her daughter. Pure love, pride, and a hint of sadness that Tasha was growing up in a way. Connor, come look at this, Claire called. Tasha's class did a charity clinic in Little Havana. He sat on the other side of Claire and looked at the photos. Tasha in scrubs helping elderly patients, children smiling despite obvious illness. Real medical work helping real people. This is amazing, Tasha. You're doing incredible things. I'm trying. That's all any of us can do. They stayed up talking until midnight. Then Tasha claimed her bedroom and Connor set up the couch. Claire lingered after Tasha had gone to bed. She likes you, Claire said quietly. She won't admit it yet, but I can tell. How can you tell? Because she didn't eviscerate you completely. That was her going easy. Connor laughed. If that was easy, I'm terrified of hard. You should be. Tasha doesn't accept anyone easily. But you held your own. That matters. Thank you for defending me in there. I wasn't defending you. I was being honest. You are trying and I do want to give you a chance. But Connor, Tasha's right about one thing. If you're going to be in my life, you have to be all in. I don't do casual and I don't do temporary. I'm not looking for casual or temporary. Then what are you looking for? Connor looked at Claire in the dim light of the living room. A real life. A meaningful life. Connection that matters. And if I'm being completely honest, a future with you in it. Claire's breath caught. That's a lot to promise after 2 weeks. I know. But I've never been more sure of anything. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood. Get some sleep, Connor. We've got another early morning and Tasha's coming with us. She wants to see you work the cart. Another test? Everything's a test until you prove yourself. But you're doing okay so far. Claire went to her room and Connor lay on the couch. Through the wall, he could hear Tasha and Claire talking quietly. Mother and daughter, sharing the kind of bond he'd never really had with his own parents. He thought about his father, dead 10 years. About his mother, trying to maintain a relationship with a son who'd been emotionally absent. About Vanessa, his almost ex-wife who'd given up on them because he'd given up first. Connor had spent years building walls and now he was trying to tear them down. It was harder than any business deal he'd ever negotiated. More frightening than any risk he'd ever taken. But lying on Claire Thompson's worn couch, listening to the life of a family that actually functioned, Connor felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not for success or money or status. But for connection. For love. For a life that mattered more than his bank account. Tomorrow Tasha would watch him work. She'd evaluate whether he was worthy of her mother. And Connor would do his best to prove that he was. One cake, one customer, one genuine moment at a time. Morning came too early as it always did. But this time Tasha was up with them, already dressed and looking far too alert for 4:30 a.m. Med school trains you to function on no sleep, she explained. 4:30 is practically sleeping in. The three of them loaded the cart together, Tasha fitting in seamlessly with the routine. She asked Connor questions about his technique, tested whether he remembered customer names from previous mornings, and generally evaluated every move he made. You're slower than my mother, she observed. I've been doing this for 3 days. She's been doing it for 6 years. Fair point. But you're getting better. Yesterday you would have dropped that cake pan. On the walk to the waterfront, Tasha asked Connor about his business. Not judgmental questions but genuine curiosity about what he did and why. Real estate development sounds boring, she said. It can be. But it's about creating spaces where people live and work. When it's done right, it improves communities. And when it's done wrong, it displaces people and destroys neighborhoods. Which kind do you do? Connor thought about his projects. The office buildings, the luxury condos, the commercial spaces. Honestly, I've probably done both. I focused on profit margins and investor returns, not on community impact. That's something I need to change. At least you admit it. Most people just defend their bad choices. They set up the cart and the morning rush started. Tasha watched Connor interact with customers, how he remembered Frank's daughter's name, asked Linda about her grandmother, checked with George about his students. Around 7 a.m., an elderly man approached the cart. He looked tired and worried, and Claire's expression immediately shifted to concern. Mr. Rodriguez, what's wrong? It's Maria. She fell last night. Broke her hip. She's at the hospital and I don't know what to do. I don't drive, and the bus doesn't run direct to the hospital from here. Claire didn't hesitate. Connor, can you take him? I don't have my car here. Then call a ride service. My treat. Connor pulled out his phone, but something made him stop. Mr. Rodriguez, I can drive you myself. My car's at my place. It's a 20-minute walk from here. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm offering. Let's go. Connor looked at Claire. Can you handle the cart alone? Tasha's here. We'll manage. Go. So Connor and Mr. Rodriguez walked to Connor's penthouse. The older man moved slowly, worry etched in every line of his face. They didn't talk much, but Connor learned that Maria was Mr. Rodriguez's wife of 53 years. They'd been together since they were 16. At the penthouse, Mr. Rodriguez stared at the building. You live here? For now. Come on up. In the garage, Connor's car sat where he'd left it. A Mercedes sedan, sleek and expensive. Mr. Rodriguez settled into the leather seat carefully, like he was afraid to touch anything. They drove to the hospital in silence. Connor parked in the visitor lot and walked Mr. Rodriguez inside, helping him navigate the confusing corridors until they found Maria's room. She was awake, looking small in the hospital bed. But her face lit up when she saw her husband. Ernesto, you found me. Of course I found you. As if I could lose you after 53 years. They embraced, and Connor felt like an intruder on their moment. He started to back out of the room, but Mr. Rodriguez called after him. Thank you, young man. You didn't have to do this. I wanted to help. Maria looked at Connor with knowing eyes. You're Claire's friend. The one who's been working her cart. That's me. She talks about you. Says you're learning. I'm trying. That's all we can do. Try and hope it's enough. Connor left them together and went to the hospital cafeteria to wait. He bought coffee and sat by a window watching people come and go. Families worried about loved ones. Doctors and nurses moving with practiced efficiency. Life and death happening in the same building, separated only by doors and hallways. His phone buzzed. Tasha. Mom says you took Mr. Rodriguez to see his wife. That was good of you. It's what anyone would do. No, it's not. Most people would have called a ride service and moved on with their day. You went out of your way. Mom noticed. How are things at the cart? Busy. But manageable. When are you coming back? Soon. I'm just making sure Mr. Rodriguez is okay first. There was a pause. Then, you know what? Maybe you're not completely terrible. Connor smiled. High praise from you. Don't let it go to your head. You're still on probation. They hung up, and Connor sat with his coffee until Mr. Rodriguez emerged from Maria's room an hour later. She's going to be okay, he said, his voice thick with relief. Surgery tomorrow, then rehab. But she'll be okay. That's great news. Connor, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you do this? You don't know me. You didn't have to help. Connor thought about it. A few weeks ago I wouldn't have. I would have called a car service and moved on because I was too busy with things that seemed important but weren't. But Claire's teaching me to see people again. To remember that everyone has a story and everyone matters. You needed help, so I helped. It's that simple. Mr. Rodriguez's eyes were shiny. Claire's a special woman. If you're smart, you'll hold on to her. I'm trying. They drove back to the waterfront. Connor dropped Mr. Rodriguez at his apartment, waited until he was safely inside, then walked back to where the cart was set up. Claire and Tasha had finished the morning rush and were packing up. Claire looked up as Connor approached, and her smile was warm. How's Maria? Surgery tomorrow, but she'll be okay. Mr. Rodriguez is relieved. That was kind of you. To drive him yourself instead of just calling a car. It was the right thing to do. Tasha was watching him again with that evaluating look. How much did that cost you in lost time? Could you have closed a deal or made money instead? Probably. But what's the point of having resources if you don't use them to help people? Most rich people don't think that way. Most rich people are miserable. I know. I was one of them. They walked back to the apartment together, the three of them. Tasha asked Connor more questions, pushing and testing. But her tone was different now, less hostile and more curious. Back at the apartment, Claire made lunch while Tasha and Connor cleaned up from the morning. Then Tasha announced she needed to study. Big exam next week. Gotta hit the books. But before she left for her room, she looked at Connor. You're doing okay. Better than I expected anyway. Thanks. I think. Don't make me regret saying that. After Tasha disappeared into her room, Claire and Connor sat at the small kitchen table. The afternoon sun streamed through the window, lighting up Claire's face. She likes you, Claire said. I can tell. How? Because she's studying in the living room where she can keep an eye on us instead of locked in her room like she usually does when men are around. Connor glanced at Tasha's closed door. Sure enough, he could see light under it and hear the faint sound of her moving around. She's protective of you. She's seen me hurt before. Not by men, just by life. She doesn't want to see it happen again. Claire's voice was soft. When her father left, she was too young to understand. But she saw me cry. Saw me work myself to exhaustion. Saw me struggle. She remembers that even if she doesn't remember him. What was he like? If you don't mind me asking. Claire was quiet for a moment. Charming. Funny. Completely unreliable. He was good at making promises and terrible at keeping them. I thought love would be enough, that he'd grow up eventually. But some people never do. I'm sorry. I'm not. If he'd stayed, Tasha would have learned that love means making excuses for someone who doesn't show up. This way, she learned that love means showing up every single day, even when it's hard. You showed up. I didn't have a choice. She needed me. You always have a choice. You chose to be her mother, fully and completely. That's not nothing. Claire looked at him with those expressive eyes. You keep saying things that make me want to trust you. Then trust me. It's not that simple. Why not? Because trusting someone means giving them the power to hurt you. And I've been hurt enough for one lifetime. Connor reached across the table and took her hand. She didn't pull away. I can't promise I'll never hurt you. People hurt each other sometimes even when they don't mean to. But I can promise I'll show up. I'll be honest. I'll do the work. And I'll never ever take you for granted. Claire's fingers tightened on his. You've got 2 more days in this challenge. Then what? Then we figure out what comes next. Together. What if what comes next means you realizing this isn't what you want? That my life is too small, too limited, too different from yours. Your life isn't small. It's rich in all the ways that matter. It's full of genuine connection and real purpose. My life was the small one. Big bank account, tiny heart. You're good with words. I mean them. They sat there, hands linked across the table, until Tasha emerged from her room. Okay, lovebirds. Enough of the tender moment. Connor, you're helping me quiz for my exam. I don't know anything about medicine. You don't have to. You just have to read the questions and tell me if my answers sound confident. It's a technique. So Connor spent the afternoon helping Tasha study. He read questions about anatomy and pharmacology, terms he barely understood. Tasha answered with impressive knowledge, occasionally asking him to repeat a question or challenge her on a detail. Around 5 p.m., Claire announced she was making dinner. Connor helped while Tasha continued studying at the table. They moved around each other in the small kitchen, a dance they developed over the past few days. You've gotten better at this, Claire observed. You don't trip over your own feet anymore. I'm learning. You're a patient teacher. Am I? Tasha would disagree. She says I'm too demanding. You have high standards. That's different from being demanding. See, there you go again. Saying things that make me like you. Is it working? Claire smiled at him over a pot of rice. Maybe. They ate dinner together, the three of them. Conversation flowed easily now, less interrogation and more genuine getting to know you. Tasha told stories about medical school disasters. Claire shared memories of her mother. Connor talked about his childhood in Ohio, about dreams he'd had before business consumed him. What did you want to be when you were a kid? Tasha asked. A teacher. Like my father. What changed? I wanted to make money. Thought success meant wealth, status, power. So I left Ohio, went to business school, and never looked back. Do you regret it? Connor thought about it honestly. I regret the person I became. The choices I made. The relationships I damaged. But I don't regret the journey because it led me here. Smooth, Tasha said, but she was smiling. After dinner they watched a movie together. Something light and funny that didn't require deep thought. Connor sat on one end of the couch, Claire in the middle, Tasha on the other end. Halfway through, Claire leaned against Connor's shoulder. It was such a simple gesture, but it felt monumental. Trust. Comfort. The beginning of something real. By 10 p.m., Tasha announced she was going to bed. Early bus tomorrow. Gotta get back to Miami. Already? Claire's disappointment was obvious. I know, Mama. But I've got that exam and I need to study more before it. I'll come back in 2 weeks. Tasha hugged her mother tightly, then surprisingly hugged Connor too. Don't screw this up, she whispered in his ear. She deserves better than her track record with men. Be that better. I will. After Tasha went to bed, Claire and Connor cleaned up. Then they sat on the couch together, not talking, just existing in the same space. 2 more days, Claire said quietly. 2 more days. Are you going to make it? I'm going to make it. Then what? Then I prove to you that this is real. That I'm serious. That I can be the person you deserve. Claire turned to look at him. Connor, you don't have to be perfect. I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for real. Then I'll be real. Every day. Starting now and not stopping. She leaned in and kissed him. Soft and tentative, a question more than a statement. Connor kissed her back, gentle and certain. When they pulled apart, Claire's eyes were shining. 2 more days. Then we figure out the rest. 2 more days, Connor agreed. That night, lying on the couch, Connor thought about the week. He'd learned to bake cakes and serve customers. He'd lived on a budget and slept on a worn couch. He'd helped an elderly man get to the hospital and studied medical terminology with a brilliant young woman. He'd lived more in 5 days than he had in the past 5 years. And he'd fallen more deeply in love with Claire Thompson than he thought possible. 2 more days of the challenge. Then the real work would begin. Building a life that honored both of their worlds. Creating something new that didn't require either of them to give up who they were. It wouldn't be easy. But nothing worth having ever was. Day 6 started with a surprise. When Connor's alarm went off at 4:30, Claire was already up, standing by the window with her phone pressed to her ear. Her voice was low and worried. I understand. Yes. Thank you for calling. She hung up and turned to find Connor sitting up on the couch. That was the city planning office. They're moving up the waterfront development timeline. I have 3 months, not 6, to find a new location. What? Why? The developer offered to pay penalties to accelerate construction. They want to break ground by April. Claire's hands were shaking. 3 months, Connor. That's not enough time to find a spot that works, rebuild my customer base, and keep paying bills. Connor stood up, fully awake now. We'll figure this out. How? I can't afford a legal fight. I can't afford to miss weeks of sales while we relocate. And I can't just give up my mother's legacy. Her voice cracked. This was supposed to be what I passed down to Tasha someday. Proof that we built something meaningful. It still will be. Location doesn't define legacy. People do. Easy to say when you've never had to choose between principle and survival. The words stung, but Connor knew she was right. He'd never had to make choices like that. He'd always had options, backup plans, resources. You're right. I'm sorry. Tell me what you need. Claire took a breath, steadying herself. I need to bake. That's what I do when life gets complicated. I bake and I figure things out. So they baked. Connor followed Claire's lead as she worked through the recipes with more intensity than usual. They didn't talk much, both lost in thought. Around 6 a.m. as they were preparing to leave, Connor's phone rang. His lawyer calling about the divorce proceedings. Mr. Blackwell, I need your signature on the final settlement papers. Mrs. Blackwell's lawyer is pushing to finalize by the end of the month. That's fine. Send them to my office. There's one complication. The penthouse. Mrs. Blackwell is requesting it as part of the settlement. She argues she chose and furnished it, and has emotional attachment. Connor thought about the penthouse. The expensive furniture, the view, the symbol of everything he'd achieved. 2 weeks ago he would have fought for it. She can have it. Excuse me? The penthouse. She can have it. I'll find somewhere else to live. Mr. Blackwell, that property is worth over $3 million. Are you certain? I'm certain. Draw up the papers. I'll sign them. He hung up to find Claire staring at him. You just gave away your home? It was never a home. It was a place I slept between work. Vanessa can have it. Where will you live? I don't know yet. But it'll be somewhere that feels real. They loaded the cart and walked to the waterfront in the early morning darkness. The routine was familiar now. Connor knew exactly how to pack everything, which route to take, how to set up efficiently. But today felt different. Claire was quiet, worried. And Connor kept thinking about the development project. 3 months wasn't much time. The morning rush was busy. Frank came by with Bella, who proudly showed off her latest soccer medal. Linda brought her grandmother, who'd finally made it to Key West for a visit. George mentioned his students were planning a surprise party for him because he was retiring at the end of the year. Connor served them all, but his mind was working through a problem. Real estate development. City planning. Timeline acceleration. There was something familiar about this pattern. Around 8 a.m. during a lull, Connor pulled out his phone and made a call. Derek, I need you to look something up for me. Connor? It's barely 8 a.m. I know. Listen, can you check who's developing the Key West waterfront project? The one accelerating construction to April. Why do you care about a waterfront project? Just check. Please. Derek sighed. Hold on. Connor waited, watching Claire serve a young couple. She was smiling, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. Derek came back on the line. Meridian Properties. Is part of the expansion deal we just closed. They're using our investment to fast-track several projects, including the Key West waterfront. Connor's stomach dropped. You're sure? Positive. It's in the project list we approved last week. Why? I'll call you back. Connor hung up and stood there numb. His company. His investment. His deal was displacing Claire. He'd done this. Indirectly, unknowingly, but he'd done it. Connor? You okay? Claire was looking at him with concern. He had to tell her. But how? How did he explain that while he was falling in love with her, his business decisions were destroying her livelihood? Claire, I need to tell you something. Before he could continue, Patricia, the developer's representative from before, appeared. She walked up to the cart with a professional smile. Claire, I'm glad I caught you. I wanted to give you this. She handed over a thick envelope. Compensation offer. My client feels terrible about the timeline change. This should help with relocation costs. Claire opened the envelope. Inside was a check for $5,000. This doesn't begin to cover what I'll lose, Claire said flatly. It's a gesture of goodwill. And honestly, it's more than legally required. The public space permit doesn't entitle you to compensation at all. How generous. Claire's voice dripped with sarcasm. Patricia's expression hardened. Look, I understand you're upset. But this development will bring jobs, revenue, and improvements to the whole area. One cake cart isn't worth stopping progress. This isn't just a cake cart. It's my livelihood. My mother's legacy. It's 20 years of community building. But I guess that doesn't matter to people like you. People like me are trying to improve the city. If you can't adapt, that's not our problem. Connor stepped forward. Who's your client? Who's the actual developer? Patricia looked at him for the first time. Meridian Properties. Why? Because I'm part owner of Meridian Properties. And I want to know everything about this project. Claire's head snapped toward him. What? My company invested in Meridian last month. This waterfront project, it's part of that deal. Connor felt sick. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know this specific project would affect you. Claire's expression closed off completely. You're part of the company displacing me? I can fix this. I'll talk to Meridian. I'll get them to adjust the timeline, preserve your spot. With what leverage? You just said you invested in them. They're using your money to push me out. Claire, please? I need space. She turned to Patricia. Thank you for the check. Tell your client it's not enough, and if they want to talk about real compensation, they can call me directly. Patricia left and Claire started packing up the cart. It was only 9 a.m., hours before she usually ended her shift. Claire, let's talk about this. Not now. I can't look at you right now. I didn't know. You have to believe that. She finally looked at him and her eyes were cold. Do I? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you were getting close to me while your business destroyed my livelihood. What was the plan, Connor? Make me fall for you, then swoop in to save me? Be my hero? That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? I've been teaching you about real life, real struggle, real community. And the whole time, you've been part of the system that makes life harder for people like me. She shook her head. I should have known. Men like you don't change. You just pretend to care until it's inconvenient. That's not true and you know it. Do I? Prove it. Walk away from the Meridian deal. Use your money and power to stop this development. It's not that simple. Of course it's not. It never is for people with power. There are always reasons why you can't do the right thing. Always contracts and obligations and business relationships that matter more than people. Claire, I can fix this without walking away from the deal. I can negotiate. Get them to adjust the project, preserve your spot, maybe even improve it. I don't want your negotiations. I want you to choose right now. Your business interests or me. Connor felt trapped. That's not a fair choice. I can do both. Then you've already chosen. Claire pushed the cart toward the street. Connor moved to help, but she held up a hand. Don't. I can get home myself. Let me help. You've helped enough. Connor watched her walk away, pushing the cart with rigid determination. His heart was breaking, but his mind was also racing. There had to be a solution. Some way to fix this without choosing between his business and the woman he loved. He pulled out his phone and called Derek. I need everything about the Meridian waterfront project. Plans, timelines, stakeholders, everything. Connor, what's going on? Just send it. Now. For the next 4 hours, Connor sat in a coffee shop studying the project details. The development was ambitious. New shops, restaurants, a renovated public space. It would bring jobs and economic growth. But it would also displace 12 small vendors including Claire. People who'd built their businesses over decades. People who served communities that the shiny new development wouldn't care about. Connor had approved this project without reading the details. He trusted Derek and the Meridian team to handle it. He'd been so focused on the profit margins and growth potential that he hadn't thought about the human cost. He'd become exactly what Claire accused him of being. A businessman who saw people as obstacles instead of individuals. By 2 p.m. Connor had a plan. It wasn't perfect, but it might work. He called the CEO of Meridian Properties and demanded a meeting. The man was surprised but agreed. I'll be there in an hour, Connor said. He walked to Meridian's offices and spent 3 hours in intense negotiations. He proposed modifications to the project. Preserving existing vendor locations, incorporating them into the new development, even improving their facilities while maintaining the community feel. The CEO pushed back. This will delay construction and increase costs. I'll cover the additional costs personally. And I'll waive my share of first-year profits to offset the delay. That's millions of dollars you're leaving on the table. I don't care. This is the right thing to do. Since when do you care about vendors? Since I learned what it costs people when we don't. By 6 p.m., Connor had an agreement in principle. The project would be modified. Claire's spot would be preserved and even upgraded. The other vendors would be protected too. Construction would still happen, but it would work around the existing community rather than erasing it. Connor walked to Claire's apartment. His legs were tired, his head ached, and he'd just committed to losing over $2 million in profits. But he felt lighter than he had in years. He knocked on Claire's door. She opened it, her eyes red from crying. What do you want? To apologize. And to tell you what I did today. I don't want to hear about your business solutions. Please. 5 minutes. If you still want me to leave after that, I'll go. Claire stepped aside reluctantly. Connor entered the small apartment that had become more home to him than his penthouse ever was. I met with Meridian. I made them change the project. Your spot is protected. So are all the other vendors. Construction will still happen, but it'll work around you, not erase you. Claire's eyes widened. How? I agreed to cover the additional costs personally. And I waived my profit share for the first year. It'll cost me about $2.5 million, but it's worth it. Why would you do that? Because you were right. I'd become someone who prioritized profits over people. But I don't want to be that person anymore. I want to be someone who uses his resources to help, not hurt. Someone who sees people really sees them. Someone you could respect. Claire sat down heavily. You gave up millions of dollars for my cake cart? Not just your cart. For all the vendors. For the community you care about. For the principle that development should enhance communities, not destroy them. Connor, I can't ask you to do that. You didn't ask. I chose. Because it was the right thing to do and because I love you and because I want to be worthy of you. Tears spilled down Claire's cheeks. You really did this? I really did. The paperwork will take a few weeks, but it's done. Your spot is protected. Your mother's legacy is safe. Claire stood and crossed to him. She put her hands on his face and looked into his eyes. You could have just walked away. Found some other woman who didn't challenge you so much. I don't want easy. I want real. I want you. She kissed him then, deep and certain. When they pulled apart, both of them were crying. I'm sorry I said you hadn't changed, Claire whispered. You have. I can see it. I'm still working on it. I'll probably always be working on it. That's all I need. Someone who keeps trying. They stood there holding each other in the small apartment. Outside, the city moved on. Inside, two people who'd found each other in the most unexpected way stood together, ready to build something real. Connor's phone buzzed. His mother. He answered on speaker. Hi, Mom. Connor, your lawyer called me. He said you gave Vanessa the penthouse. Where are you going to live? Connor looked at Claire, who was smiling through her tears. I'm figuring that out. But Mom, I need to tell you something. I met someone. Someone amazing. The cake lady? Her name is Claire. And yes, the cake lady. I love her, Mom. His mother laughed, the sound warm and full of joy. Well, it's about time you found someone real. When do I get to meet her? Soon. I promise. They said goodbye and Connor put his phone away. Claire was watching him with those expressive eyes he'd fallen in love with. Your mother sounds nice. She is. She'll love you. How do you know? Because I love you. And she wants me to be happy. And you make me happier than I've been in my entire life. Claire pulled him close again. I love you too. I tried not to. Told myself it was too fast, too complicated, too risky. But I can't help it. You've shown me who you really are. Not the businessman or the millionaire. Just Connor. And Connor is enough. They stayed like that for a long time. Then Claire pulled back. Your challenge isn't over. You've still got one more day. I know. Think you can make it? Connor smiled. With you, I can make it through anything. That night they baked together. But it felt different. Not like a challenge or a test. Like partners building something together. Tomorrow would be day 7. The final day. And then they'd figure out what came next. Together. Day 7 started differently than the others. When the alarm went off at 4:30, Connor woke to find Claire sitting on the edge of the couch, just watching him. Morning, he said groggily. Morning. Last day of the challenge. Has it been everything you hoped? Claire smiled. It's been more. You've surprised me, Connor Blackwell. I thought you'd quit by day 3. I almost did. Day 2, when my whole body hurt and I couldn't imagine doing this for years like you have. What kept you going? You. And the realization that this pain meant something. It was proof I was doing real work, creating real value. Not just moving money around on spreadsheets. They loaded the cart together, moving with practice synchronization now. The walk to the waterfront felt bittersweet. This was the last morning of the routine they'd built together. What happens tomorrow? Claire asked as they set up. I don't know. I have to figure out where I'm living. What changes I'm making to my company. How to build a life that honors both our worlds. That's a lot to figure out. I'll manage. I've got good motivation. The morning rush brought the usual customers. But today Connor noticed something different. People were talking about the development project. About the modifications that would preserve the vendor spots. Frank approached with Bella. Claire, did you hear? The waterfront project got changed. They're keeping the vendor spaces. I heard, Claire said with a knowing glance at Connor. Someone must have fought for us. Someone with real power. Frank looked at Connor. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? Connor started to deflect, but Claire spoke first. Connor made it happen. He used his connections and his money to protect all of us. Frank extended his hand. Then thank you. This spot's been part of my morning routine for 15 years. I couldn't imagine losing it. Throughout the morning, other vendors stopped by to thank Connor. Maria the jewelry maker. Tom who sold paintings. Lisa with her flower cart. Each one had been facing displacement. Each one was grateful. You didn't have to tell people it was me, Connor said to Claire during a quiet moment. Why not? You did a good thing. You should get credit for it. I wasn't doing it for credit. I know. That's why you deserve it. Around 9 a.m. Derek showed up. Connor hadn't expected him, and the surprise must have shown on his face. Don't look so shocked, Derek said. You've been MIA for a week. I wanted to make sure you were still alive. I'm alive. Just busy. Derek looked at the cart, at Claire, at Connor in his casual clothes covered in cake crumbs. This is what you've been doing? Selling cakes. Learning to sell cakes. There's a difference. Connor, can we talk? Privately? Connor looked at Claire, who nodded. Go. I've got this. Connor and Derek walked down the waterfront. Derek waited until they were out of earshot before speaking. What happened to you? You closed the biggest deal of your career, then disappeared. You gave away your penthouse. You cost us millions on the Meridian project with those modifications. The Connor I know doesn't do any of that. Maybe the Connor you know needed to change. Into what? A cake vendor? Into someone who cares about more than profit margins. Derek stopped walking. Are you having a breakdown? Because if you are, we can get you help. I'm not having a breakdown. I'm having a breakthrough. I'm realizing that I built a successful company but failed at building a meaningful life. And I'm trying to fix that. By selling cakes with some woman you just met? Connor felt anger flash through him. Her name is Claire. And she's taught me more about what matters in 2 weeks than I learned in 20 years of business school and corporate success. Connor, you're a brilliant businessman. You can't just throw that away for what, love? Romance? Some fantasy of a simpler life. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm adding to it. I'm learning to use my success for something besides accumulating more success. Derek shook his head. I don't get it. You have everything. Money, power, respect. Why risk it? Because having everything felt like having nothing. Because I was successful and miserable. Because Claire looked at me and saw a person, not a bank account. And because for the first time in years I feel alive. So what's the plan? Quit the company? Move into some tiny apartment and sell cakes. I haven't figured out all the details. But I'm not quitting the company. I'm changing how I run it. More focus on community impact. Better treatment of employees. Projects that improve lives, not just generate returns. That's not realistic in our industry. Then maybe our industry needs to change. Maybe I need to prove it's possible to be successful and ethical. Profitable and caring. Derek was quiet for a moment. Then, the California investors are asking about you. They want a face-to-face before they commit the full $20 million. When? Next week. They're flying in Tuesday. Connor thought about it. The old him would have jumped at this meeting, would have prepared for days. But now he had other priorities. Set it up. But Derek, I need you to understand something. I'm not the same person I was a month ago. I'm not going to sacrifice my principles or my relationships for business deals. If the investors can't accept that, we'll find other investors. Connor. I'm serious. Claire matters to me. Building a meaningful life matters to me. The company is important, but it's not everything. Not anymore. Derek studied him for a long moment. Then he smiled slightly. You really love her. I really do. Then I guess I'll have to get used to the new Connor. Derek extended his hand. For what it's worth, you seem happier. Less stressed. Maybe this change is good for you. They shook hands and walked back to the cart. Claire was serving the last few customers of the morning rush. She looked up as they approached, her expression cautious. Everything okay? She asked. Everything's good, Connor assured her. Derek was just checking on me. Making sure I haven't corrupted him too badly? Claire's tone was light, but Connor could hear the real question underneath. Actually, Derek said, I was making sure he's eating properly. Connor tends to forget meals when he's focused on something. Claire laughed. He's been eating 3 meals a day here. I make sure of it. They chatted for a few more minutes before Derek left. Connor helped Claire pack up the cart, and they walked back to her apartment together. Derek seems nice, Claire said. He's been my partner for 15 years. We've built the company together. Is he okay with the changes you're making? He's adjusting. It's hard for him to understand why I'd choose differently. But he'll come around. Back at the apartment, they unloaded the cart and cleaned up. Then Claire turned to Connor. Your week is up. The challenge is over. I know. You did it. You made it through 7 days of my life. What did you learn? Connor thought about it carefully. I learned that real wealth isn't money. It's connection, community, purpose. I learned that hard work with meaning is more satisfying than easy success without it. I learned that you're the most remarkable person I've ever met, and I want to spend the rest of my life learning from you. That's a lot to learn in 7 days. You're a good teacher. Claire moved closer to him. So what happens now? You go back to your penthouse, your business, your old life? I don't have a penthouse anymore. Remember? I gave it to Vanessa. Right. So where will you live? Connor took a breath. This was a risk, but he'd been taking risks all week. I was hoping you might have a suggestion. Maybe somewhere close to you? Or, if you're open to it, somewhere with you. Claire's eyes widened. Connor, we've known each other for 2 weeks. I know. And if it's too fast, I understand. I can find my own place nearby. But Claire, I don't want to go back to living alone in some expensive apartment that isn't a home. I want to wake up next to you. I want to help you bake at night and serve customers in the morning. I want to build a life with you. What about your company? I'll still run it, but differently. I'll work reasonable hours. I'll be present. I'll use the company to create positive change instead of just accumulating wealth. And what about when you get tired of this? When the novelty wears off and you remember that I'm just a cake vendor with a small apartment and a modest life? Connor took her hands. You're not just anything. You're everything that matters. And I'm not going to get tired of you any more than I'd get tired of breathing. You're necessary to me now. Essential. Tears filled Claire's eyes. I want to believe you. Then believe me. I love you, Claire Thompson. Not despite our differences, but because of who you are. Your strength. Your kindness. Your ability to see what really matters. I love you and I want to build a life with you, whatever that looks like. My couch isn't big enough for both of us long term. Then we'll get a bigger place. Or I'll actually use the couch and you keep your bed. Or we'll figure something else out. I don't care about the logistics. I just care about being with you. Claire pulled him close and kissed him. Okay. Let's try this. Let's see if we can build something real together. But Connor, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you won't lose yourself trying to be what you think I want. I fell in love with you, with who you're becoming. Not with some idealized version of a simple life. I need you to be honest about what you need, even if it's different from what I need. I promise. And I need you to promise the same thing. Don't change who you are for me. I love you exactly as you are. Deal. They spent the rest of the day talking about practicalities. Connor would need to find temporary housing while they figured out long-term plans. He'd go back to work, but with new boundaries and priorities. They'd take things slowly despite the intensity of their feelings. That evening, Connor's phone rang. His mother. Hi, Mom. Connor, I've been thinking. Why don't you come stay with me for a while? You need a place to live and I've got plenty of room. Plus, I want to meet this Claire you're so smitten with. Connor looked at Claire, who was listening curiously. Mom wants me to stay with her. And she wants to meet you. Claire's eyes went wide. Already? If you're not ready, I can tell her to wait. But Claire straightened her shoulders. No. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. I'll meet your mother. So Connor made plans to drive to his mother's house the next day. Claire would come with him for the weekend. It was fast, maybe too fast. But everything about their relationship had been fast. That night they baked together one more time. Not as teacher and student, but as partners. They moved around each other with ease, reading each other's needs without words. I'm going to miss this, Claire said as they packaged the last cakes. Miss what? We'll still do this. I know. But it won't be the same. This week it was just us. Building this routine. Learning each other. Tomorrow real life starts. Real life will be better. Because we'll be choosing it together, not because of a challenge. At midnight they finished cleaning up. Connor set up the couch, but Claire stopped him. Stay with me tonight. Really with me. Last night of the challenge should be special. So Connor followed Claire to her bedroom. They lay together in her small bed, holding each other in the dark. I love you, Claire whispered. I love you too. Are we crazy? Moving this fast? Probably. But I've spent years being careful and reasonable, and it made me miserable. Maybe a little crazy is exactly what I need. Claire laughed softly. My mother used to say that love doesn't follow rules. It just happens and you either embrace it or run from it. Smart woman. She was. I wish you could have met her. Tell me about her. So Claire told him stories about her mother. Her strength, her humor, her unwavering belief that good things came to those who worked hard and stayed kind. Connor listened, learning more about the woman who'd raised the woman he loved. Eventually they fell asleep tangled together. Connor's last thought before sleep claimed him was that this simple moment of holding someone he loved, was worth more than every business deal he'd ever closed. The challenge was over. The real journey was just beginning. 6 months passed in a blur of change and growth. Connor moved in with his mother temporarily, but ended up finding a small house near Claire's apartment. Not a mansion or penthouse, but a real home with a yard and neighbors who knew his name. He restructured his company around principles that mattered. Employee well-being. Community impact. Sustainable development. Derek was skeptical at first, but the changes attracted new investors who shared Connor's vision. The California deal went through, but with strict guidelines about how the money would be used. Claire expanded her cake business with Connor's help. Not by franchising or going corporate, but by training other vendors who wanted to start their own carts. She created a cooperative that shared resources and supported each other. Her mother's legacy grew, but stayed true to its roots. Tasha warmed to Connor gradually. She tested him constantly, but he passed every test by just being himself. Honest, present, committed to her mother's happiness. Connor's mother and Claire became fast friends. They ganged up on him regularly, teasing him about his past stuffiness and celebrating every sign of growth. And through it all, Connor and Claire built a life together. Not perfect but real. They argued sometimes about money, about time, about priorities. But they always came back to each other with honesty and love. Connor proposed on the beach where they'd first met at sunrise, while Claire was setting up her cart. No ring, just a question. Will you marry me? For real this time, not as a joke about buying cakes. Claire said yes without hesitation. Now, 6 months after that first morning on the waterfront, they were planning their wedding. And true to form, Claire insisted on making the wedding cake herself. I've made cakes for hundreds of people, she said. I'm making my own wedding cake. They decided on a simple ceremony on the beach. Just family and close friends. Claire's regulars from the cart. Connor's mother and a few genuine friends from his business life. Tasha would be the maid of honor. Derek would be Connor's best man, still slightly baffled by the whole situation but supportive. The night before the wedding, Connor and Claire were in her apartment doing final preparations. Claire was in the kitchen working on the cake, while Connor addressed the last few invitations. You know, Claire said, carefully piping frosting, I never thought I'd get married again. After Tasha's father left, I decided love wasn't worth the risk. What changed your mind? You did. You showed me that love doesn't have to be risky if both people are honest. That partnership works when both people show up. I'm going to show up every day. For the rest of our lives. I know you will. That's why I'm marrying you. Tasha walked in, dressed in her bridesmaid outfit. How's the cake coming, Mama? Almost done. Want to help with the final touches. Mother and daughter worked together, adding delicate flowers and elegant swirls. Connor watched them, marveling at how far they'd all come. His phone buzzed. Derek, sending a congratulatory message and a photo of the beach setup. Everything was ready. Nervous? Tasha asked Connor. Terrified, he admitted. Good. You should be. You're marrying the best woman in the world. That's scary. Tasha, Claire protested. It's true, Mama. You're the best. And Connor's pretty great too, even if he did start out as a clueless rich guy. I was definitely clueless, Connor agreed. But you learned. That's what matters. The cake was finished just before midnight. It was 3 tiers of key lime, chocolate raspberry and lemon lavender, decorated simply but beautifully. Claire's mother's recipes made with love. It's perfect, Connor said. It's not fancy but made with care. They carefully moved the cake to the refrigerator, then Claire sent Tasha home to get some rest. Connor started to leave too, following the tradition of not seeing the bride before the wedding. Wait, Claire called. Stay for a minute. They sat on the couch where Connor had slept during his challenge week. It felt like a lifetime ago, though it had only been 6 months. Are you happy? Claire asked. Happier than I ever thought possible. No regrets? About giving up the penthouse? About changing your company? About choosing this life? Not one single regret. Claire, you saved me from a life of empty success. You taught me what actually matters. How could I regret that? I didn't save you. You saved yourself. I just gave you permission to try. Then thank you for the permission. And for the love. And for taking a chance on a stubborn businessman who bought cake every morning until you agreed to give him a shot. Claire laughed. When you put it that way, it sounds like stalking. Persistent courtship. Sure, let's call it that. They kissed, slow and sweet, savoring these last moments as an unmarried couple. Tomorrow, Claire whispered. Tomorrow we start forever. I can't wait. The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful. Connor woke early in his house, dressed in a simple blue suit that Claire had chosen. No Rolex. No expensive accessories. Just him, ready to marry the woman he loved. At the beach, chairs were set up in neat rows. Claire's cake cart was there, decorated with flowers. Frank and his daughter Bella were setting up chairs. Linda and her grandmother were arranging flowers. George, Maria, Tom, Lisa, all of Claire's regulars had come to celebrate. Connor's mother arrived, elegant and happy. Your father would have loved her, she told Connor. He would have been so proud of who you've become. I wish he could be here. He is, honey. And all the lessons he taught you about kindness and showing up for people you love. Derek arrived with his wife, looking uncomfortable in beach casual clothes but smiling genuinely. "I never thought I'd see you this happy," he told Connor. "Neither did I." The ceremony started at 10 a.m. Tasha walked down the sandy aisle first, radiant and proud. Then Claire appeared, wearing a simple dress the color of Key West sky at sunrise. She carried a small bouquet of the same flowers that grew around her mother's grave. Connor's breath caught. She was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. They met at the front, holding hands while their friend from the community center officiated. The ceremony was short and meaningful. They wrote their own vows. Connor went first. "Claire, you taught me that success without connection is just expensive loneliness. You showed me how to see people really see them. You challenged me to be better and loved me while I learned how. I promise to show up every day. To be honest even when it's hard. To value what matters. And to love you with everything I am for the rest of my life." Claire's eyes were shining with tears. "Connor, you came into my life when I decided to play it safe. You were stubborn and clueless and completely sincere in wanting to learn. You proved that people can change if they're willing to do the work. I promise to support your growth while staying true to myself. To be honest about my needs. To build a life with you that honors both our worlds. And to love you with my whole heart, today and always." They exchanged simple rings. Connor's was a plain band. Claire's had a small stone that had belonged to her mother. "I now pronounce you married," the officiant announced. "You may kiss your bride." And Connor kissed his wife as their community cheered. This community they'd built together. These people who'd seen their journey and believed in their love. The reception was casual and joyful. They ate food from local vendors. They danced on the sand. They cut the wedding cake that Claire had made, and Connor fed her a bite of key lime with reverence. "This is the cake that started everything," he said. "Best $5 I ever charged." Tasha gave a speech that made everyone laugh and cry. "My mother taught me that family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up, who work hard, who love without conditions. Connor, you've shown up. You've worked hard. And you love my mother the way she deserves. Welcome to our family. Try not to screw it up." Connor's mother spoke too. "I watched my son become someone I didn't recognize. Successful but hollow. Then he met Claire and remembered how to be human again. Thank you, Claire, for giving me my son back." Derek gave a surprisingly emotional toast about how Connor had taught him that success means nothing if you're miserable. "I'm still learning that lesson," Derek admitted. "But watching Connor and Claire, I'm starting to understand." As the sun set, Connor and Claire walked along the beach, hand in hand. Behind them, their guests celebrated. Ahead of them, their future stretched bright and unknown. "We did it," Claire said. "We did. What now?" "Now we live. Really live. Together. Think we can do it? Build a life that works." Connor pulled her close. "I know we can. We've already proven we can do hard things. We can navigate different worlds. We can love each other honestly. The rest is just details." "I love you, Connor Blackwell." "I love you, Claire Blackwell." They stood there as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in those colors Connor had first noticed the morning he met Claire. Pink and orange and gold. The colors of new beginnings. Frank walked by with Bella. "Congratulations, you two. Bella wants to know if you'll still sell cakes now that you're married." "Every morning," Claire assured them. "Some things don't change just because life gets better." "Good. We'd miss our morning routine." As Frank and Bella walked away, Connor thought about routines. How his old routine had been empty meetings and lonely dinners. How his new routine was waking up next to Claire, baking cakes together, serving their community, building something that mattered. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For refusing to sell me all the cakes that first morning. For challenging me to live your life. For giving me a chance to prove myself. For loving me. You would have done the same for me. I don't know. The old me wouldn't have. But the man you helped me become? He absolutely would." They walked back to the reception where Tasha was teaching Connor's mother how to dance. Where Derek was talking with Frank about his daughter's soccer dreams. Where their two worlds had merged into something new and beautiful. This was what love looked like. Not perfect. Not always easy. But honest and real and worth everything. Connor had started his journey thinking he needed to buy all the cakes to prove his love. But he'd learned that love wasn't about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It was about showing up. Being present. Choosing your person every single day. And he chose Claire. Today, tomorrow, and every day after. Under the Key West stars, surrounded by people who loved them, Connor and Claire began their forever. Not with wealth or status or power. But with kindness, hope, And a love that had started with a $5 slice of cake and grown into something neither of them could have imagined. The end. And the beginning.